Hi everyone and welcome back to Grumpy Monkey Trading. My name is Michael. I hope you had a happy Halloween weekend. Hopefully more treats than tricks, but you never can tell these days. We had a good weekend. We got the boys dressed up as Ninja Turtle and Turtle and went around for their trick-or-treating, which was a lot of fun. I hope you also had a good week on the markets with all the earnings released. I got a nice play-in of a saddle option on Buffalo Wild Wings that worked out really well, so I was quite pleased. On the show today, we're going to be doing Mad Money's Lightning Round, taking all the stocks that they discussed on Mad Money's Lightning Round, and then doing a charting analysis on them now. So it's going to be super fun. Hope you stay tuned. Home Depot HD. Kramer says, I would buy half my position now and then wait to see if it comes in. I think they're having a terrific quarter. If they're having a terrific quarter, that's great, but I would be a bit concerned about getting in right away because we are really at an upper boundary for this stock, and when I look at it, I'm seeing a lot of overbought signals that are concerning to me. Chief among them is we have this nice resistance line here of the RSI. We're not only in overbought territory, but we're poking up against this resistance line. Second of all is we had this nice run here, we had a nice stabilization period, and then we resumed this other run. But you can see there's a few waves in there already. So it sort of limits our upside, because our upside, if the results come in well, is probably capped at this darker blue line. Whereas because we're already in overbought conditions, the results are poor, we really have a long way to go. Like you could go quite far down if those results miss it all. If we look at some of the other stochastics and oscillators, we also see overbought in a lot of those as well. Stochastics very high on the weekly, looking to come down. We can kind of draw another chamber. So it's doing a rising wedge formation. We have CCI, which was up and now it's coming down, which is an indicator of a reversal potentially at play. We have a nearing overbought money flow index and a nearing overbought ultimate oscillator. I'm not saying their quarter is going to be bad or anything like that. I'm just saying that if it's great, you only have so much upside in the short term. And if it's terrible, you have a ton of downside. So I would just be concerned as to how you get into this stock. Maybe you do want to wait and see what the results are and what the long-term future is, because it is very expensive right now. Sun Edison, SUNE. Kramer says, no, remember we did a piece saying, listen, that one is not going to work. We thought it would work initially, but it came down and forget about it. Yeah, it came down is a polite way of saying it crashed like crazy. This is basically the Avengers 2 city when it's sort of floating in the air and coming down and they blow it up. Well, this time it just smashes into the earth and nothing is left standing. So in this case, if you were to say, hey, I like SUNE, don't compare it to Avengers 2, you could at least argue that there's a support line here and it might be an entry point, but I don't know anything about the fundamentals, so I would avoid it. Bristol Myers, BMY. Kramer says, I just know about their drugs and management. All I can tell you is I reiterate my buy on Bristol Myers. I think it's a good situation. I have for a long time, obviously. I think part of that is just because he really enjoys saying Bristol Myers. Bristol Myers! Bristol Myers! If they weren't a good stock, he wouldn't get to say it all the time. I would say that certainly they're in an uptrend. Certainly they have some momentum in the short term. They had obviously a big dry spell here. You could argue that a cup pattern is forming, in which case we would be looking to see a handle fairly soon, which would mean a retread here back into the 65 kind of region, maybe a little bit farther. That's supported by the stochastics, which indicate that it is sort of in a short-term overbought situation and could, for a few weeks, retreat a little bit more. So I would look for that handle, at which point, once you're in the handle pattern, part of the cup and handle, then you're looking for a breakout through the cup part, which would be defined here with some volume behind it. So I would say Bristol Myers is a bit of a holding pattern for now. Alcoa AA. Kramer says, this thing is so overdone on the downside. It's ridiculous. I think you buy it and you put it away. I really believe that. I believe that too as well. Alcoa is a long-term play for me too. I really believe in what they're doing with the new alloys and supporting the space and aeronautics industry. I think that is something different. They're getting a lot of contracts and a lot of money, but they're just getting screwed by aluminum and the whole mentality behind metals right now. They're splitting some of that apart, which I think will be positive. But it's a long-term play and they need that spark. That's what they need, is a spark to kind of rekindle the love for it. And they don't, you just see that in the trend, that there's no spark and there's no love, right? Even with some of those fundamentals coming together, it is a long-term play. There's no real reason to get into it now unless you observe that it is quite depressed. And if you're saying, hey, let's do it, now is not a bad time. ISIS Pharmaceuticals. ISIS. Kramer says, if you're approaching it long term, which is the way you have to do it, you have to buy in on big dips. But I have to tell you, again, remember the big dogs in biotech are still in bear mode. We need some of them, Regeneron, Celgene, Gilead, go up really big before we can get comfortable with the second tier names like ISIS. Every time I hear the names like Regeneron and Celgene, I always think they're like Superman uncles, like, my uncle Regeneron and my aunt Celgene are coming for dinner tonight. Or maybe Transformers would be more appropriate, Regeneron. And what an unfortunate name for a company, ISIS. I mean, I just want to be a fly on that boardroom. Everyone around the table being like, oh, it just keeps getting worse. Just a nightmare for them, I'm sure. Can we change the business cards? I don't know. As for the chart, we have two symmetrical triangle patterns, which is kind of cool. We have one here and one there. Both of those tend to break out in the way of the original trend, so that was positive here and it was positive there. So we're in a holding pattern waiting to make a decision between these two triangles. If we pop out of this one, we'll get into that one. So what we're looking for a breakout is to push through here with some volume. That's basically all we're looking for. And if it does that, you can get a nice long run of it. So SFUN Holdings. SFUN is the symbol. They're a Chinese company, but they sound like they're from Sweden. We're going to have this fun tonight. Kramer says it's a Chinese stock, and I don't recommend Chinese stocks on this show. Not until I get a little more clarity from the party. If the party wants to give me a call and tell me that it's time to party down, I will, but right now the communists are too hard to figure out. Well, this chart is not very hard to figure out. It is a descending triangle, which typically go tap, tap, thump, stay away. Rackspace Hosting. Kramer says, down 44%. It's disappointed so many times. Maybe this quarter they'll pull it out, but I've got to say that this thing has been reeking of disappointment, much like my high school dating life, which was basically computer games and sadness. For Rackspace, they're pushing against this lower support value. Their earnings occur not this Monday, but the following Monday. If they're again poor, we're going to blow right through that support line. And who knows where the bottom is? It'll be quite a bit below that. If they surprise, then it could have a nice jump up. But really, do they do anything that someone else doesn't already do, like Amazon and Google? I don't know. Weight Watchers, WTW. Kramer says it's had a big move because of Oprah buying it, but I think it's time to take the gain, and I would tend to agree with him. If you capitalized on buying it somewhere down here and you have this massive profit, that's great. That's awesome. You did awesome. But it smashed into this resistance line with all that volume. Smashed into it. Did not break it. And then it subsided a bit. And both of those are warning signs because we haven't really had a true breakout until it gets across that line with volume. Now, it could do that by kind of hovering down here for a little while and popping through. That would be the most logical course, but that isn't today. So if you have those gains, it's still Weight Watchers. There's a ton of competitors out there. So you might just want to take that profit and run, run, run. NVAX, NVAX. Kramer says, I think it's a buy. I can't believe how low this thing has gotten. This is actually just absurd. They're doing much better than the stock indicates. Well, the stock indicates that this thing has taken a poop kicking lately, going from 15 down to 7. There has to be solid fundamental reasons for this, and the stock isn't instantaneously going to turn around and go right back up again. At the very least, there's going to be a long stabilization period for it to evaluate where all the metrics are. So if you do like it, there is a nice support line that's coming up, but I just would remain cautious, and I would think that when it breaks out of this resistance line would be an opportunity to buy, not simply because Kramer told you. Horizon Pharma, HZNP. Kramer says, this market does not like Valiant, and somehow Horizon has gotten caught up in the idea that it's Valiant. It's not. But you have to wait until the smoke clears and Valiant stock is going down because it's some kind of weird guilt by association. Well, that is some guilt because it is definitely taken it. This is the most plausible resistance line, or support line I should say, so I would wait for it to ease back and hopefully that guilt will have subsided, everyone's conscience will be clear, and the stock can resume going back up. U.S. Steel Group, X. Kramer says they're really in the crosshairs of both the decline in the oil and gas because they make oil country tube and because the Chinese are dumping steel like crazy. So therefore I have to tell you that you cannot own the letter X, neither Y nor Z either. There will be no letter owning in this country any longer. As for this pattern, it is a very simple pattern. It is a classic example of a head and shoulders pattern. Shoulder, shoulder, head, dramatic fall. This will at some point stabilize, and with a change in the fundamentals, should resume a positive pattern. But it is overall a very negative trend, and it is best to stay away. All right, that's our show for today. Thank you again for watching. If you enjoyed the show and the series, please subscribe, and I'll see you again next week.